At Bharat Forge Limited, we don't believe in pause buttons. 50 years ago, we hit play, and we haven't stopped since. We move, we go places, and we take our legacy with us. We started small, but our dreams were big. And we chased them tirelessly with all our heart. That's what brought us to the top. To the world's biggest names. And to people's lives. We're committed to partnering greatness, no matter where we go. From India to Germany, to France to Sweden, and now USA. We always go that extra mile and bring the best to wherever our clients are, and we never settle. Over 50 years, we have pioneered innovations across fields. Our expertise keeps sharpening. Our credits keep increasing. And our relationships, they only keep growing. We are fueled by our dreams. Inspired by the next possibility. We nurture ideas, give them wings, make them soar. We seek to build a better, smarter, and brighter tomorrow. And we will. Because that's just who we are. Driven, caring, innovative, and unstoppable.
Zinc, aluminium, copper, silver, iron ore, oil and gas are the building blocks of the modern world. Without them, life as we know it would be impossible. With a footprint spanning 4 continents, Vedanta is one of the largest producers of natural resources in the world. Copper is where it all began for Vedanta. Today, Vedanta is a leading global player in copper. With its multiple present-day uses, copper plays a critical role in contemporary life. Aluminium has been called a perfect material, touching our lives in the most fundamental ways. Vedanta is India's largest producer of this most versatile of metals, aluminium. Silver is a key element in digital connectivity. 95% of India's primary silver is produced by Vedanta. One of metal's unsung heroes is zinc. Zinc protects and extends the life of steel. Vedanta is one of the world's leading integrated producers of zinc and lead. Oil fuels the drive behind modern economies and lifestyles. Vedanta Cairn Oil and Gas is one of India's leading independent energy majors. As India's largest iron ore producer, Vedanta has set a precedent in environmental concern, transforming a used mine site into a beautiful horticultural park.
We at Vedanta are fully committed to explore and to develop these resources in most sustainable manner. This will be a game changer for the economy and will create millions of jobs and eradicate poverty. I am committed to build a culture, not only the company, the culture built on trust, working together in harmony for the greater good. For me, business is not about accumulating wealth, it's all about giving back to the society.
घर हमारा घर जिसे सब नजर आता है, वो दादू का किरदार बन कहानी सुनाना, फिर वो नींद के साथ कहानी की हैप्पी एंडिंग का आना, सीढ़ियों पे मासूमियत वाली मस्ती का छाना, बाथरूम का घर के रॉक स्टार के लिए स्टेज बन जाना और फिर ऑडियंस का रिएक्शन पे डांट खाना, रसोई में माँ के लड्डू और दादी की पकौड़ियों पे चुपचाप अटैक कर जाना, वो पहली बार हल्की सी हिचकिचाहट संग उन कदमों का फर्श पे आना। घर की नजरों से कुछ नहीं छिपता, घर हर जज्बात है समझता, ये सबको अपना के रखता है अपनी हर धड़कन में। जब घर बनता है हेल्दी सीमेंट से, अमृत सीमेंट, सुनो अपने घर की धड़कन।
This is our home, a paradise. So beautiful and perfect, so harmonious that it could create life. This is our home, a paradise. So beautiful and perfect, so harmonious that it could create life. Humans, so evolved and intelligent, capable of replicating nature's power of creation. With the discovery of fossil fuels and petroleum and the generation of power and electricity, we advanced in technology and infrastructure. And our world began to change. Population increased. And we started needing more energy. Thus we changed the face of the earth. But do we realize that our creations are slowly destroying the earth?
At present, we are spewing more than 110 million tons of global warming pollution into the atmosphere every single day, as if it's an open sewer. So yes, we do have to change. The scientists have long warned us that we must, and now Mother Nature is doing so with her much more powerful voice.
Solar panels were first used in satellites because we wanted it to last forever. Otherwise, the batteries would wear out.
Do we have the ability to solve this crisis? Fortunately, the exciting answer to this question is also yes.
अगर हम डेवलपमेंट एनवायरमेंट फ्रेंडली नहीं करते हैं, विकास और प्रकृति पर्यावरण की रक्षा नहीं करते हैं, तो विकास हमारे लिए भी संकट बन सकता है.
Avada is a leading builder of renewable energy projects in India. We have built complex solar and wind power projects aggregating to over 1.1 gigawatt capacities across diverse geographies. We have built some of India's largest capacities. We were the first in the country to build a 1 gigawatt solar portfolio.
This is only the beginning. We need scale to power the entire country using the solar, scale to change the brown sources of energy with cleaner sources of energy like solar and wind. Thanks to our amazing engineering, procurement and construction team, we have managed to do the solar project and wind project in a very economical and sustainable fashion.
Our emphasis on systems and processes has enabled the organization for flawless execution by consistently decreasing its on-ground development cycle, thus completing projects several months before schedule. We have pioneered solar power solutions, both in terms of plant size and total installation capacity, helping bring the solar tariff closer to grid parity. The plants we have built were numbered among those with the highest efficiency in India.
We are showing the world that solar energy is not only sustainable form of energy, but investing in solar can be profitable too.
With our strong EPC execution capabilities and project portfolio, we had managed to build a competitive advantage through already locked-in land banks, long-term signed MOUs, PPAs with state utilities. We have drawn investors like Asian Development Bank, General Electric Capital, and DG from Germany for our past projects.
In next 5 years, India should become the largest clean energy power producer in the world.
We need to be responsible because in the coming years, India is going to be a major manufacturing hub for the world. Currently, Germany, Denmark and Costa Rica are the leading countries with regards to renewable energy generation.
In the next 10 years, we will take India forward to a sustainable journey.
Avada is a socially conscious organization
Conceived with a vision to look at all levels of social change. The scalability of renewable projects allows its usage in varied geographies and applications. This presents a unique advantage for India, where 540 million out of 1.2 billion Indians do not have access to electricity.
teachers from government school are trained in specialized subjects to enhance their training delivery mechanism by using experiential training methodology. We work with the women in the rural communities to ensure that they can learn stitching, they can learn the beautician course. It doubles the income of the family, and what it also does, it ensures that women's own self-esteem becomes better. As a holistic, environmental friendly company, our green efforts does not stop with clean energy. Due to non-availability of medical services and lack of awareness among rural Indians, we are seeing a high rate of infant mortality. We need to bridge this gap which exists between urban and rural India.
I know the world can come together as one at a time of crisis. We always have.
This is a moment in time when business leaders, government officials, and citizens from all over India have come together to embrace the potential for a bright new future and a sustainable world.
We are the generation responsible for the way we are going to be for the next 500 years. All we have to do is to start looking up at the sky. Let's create a history that's going to be cherished. Avada, promise of a sustainable future.
सर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। साहब, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। हुजूर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता।
अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान।
अपनों को खुशियां दिलाना आसान नहीं बनाते तो आगे कैसे बढ़ते? इसीलिए हम जो भी करते हैं उसे बेहतर बनाते आ रहे हैं, बनाते रहेंगे। बजाज फिनसर्व, थिंक इट, डन।
Trust, hard work, honesty, and vision. These are the pillars on which BKT has thrived for over 30 years. This is BKT, a global player today in the off-highway tire industry with a global market share of around 5%, a sales volume of $900 million and exports to over 163 countries. All this is due to one man's visionary leadership, Mr. Arvind Poddar.
We drive to be the most trusted off-highway tire company in the world.
And taking this drive forward is his son, Mr. Rajiv Poddar. Together they form the leadership at BKT. BKT has a manufacturing footprint across India. With its factory in Bhuj being the largest of its kind globally. BKT considers latest technology as its backbone and has state-of-the-art machinery for greater speed and efficiency. BKT tires are of the highest quality at bar and better than the best in the world. BKT has created its own independent research and development center, as it places immense focus on product development to engineer and deliver the most scientifically advanced solutions and performance-based products. BKT, growing together.
Customers from across India and the world have been leaning on us for over 75 years. Blue Star, built on trust.
As we enter the 35th year of excellence, the Brahmins family thank each one of you, our esteemed customers, for making us part of your life and for being our strength as we deliver the best, committed to quality and purity. Let's keep our bond strong for the years to come. Brahmins, a vegetarian promise.
Trust, hard work, honesty, and vision. These are the pillars on which BKT has thrived for over 30 years. This is BKT, a global player today in the off-highway tire industry with a global market share of around 5%, a sales volume of $900 million and exports to over 163 countries. All this is due to one man's visionary leadership, Mr. Arvind Poddar.
We drive to be the most trusted off-highway tire company in the world.
And taking this drive forward is his son, Mr. Rajiv Poddar. Together they form the leadership at BKT. BKT has a manufacturing footprint across India. With its factory in Bhuj being the largest of its kind globally. BKT considers latest technology as its backbone and has state-of-the-art machinery for greater speed and efficiency. BKT tires are of the highest quality at par and better than the best in the world.
It's our top-of-the-line technology that adds to your bottom line.
BKT has created its own independent research and development center, as it places immense focus on product development to engineer and deliver the most scientifically advanced solutions and performance-based products. Post-development testing is done in a simulated environment. As well as on a one-of-its-kind testing track which is part of the center. On the one hand, BKT installed its own power plant in Bhuj for self-sufficiency. On the other, as early as 2004, it began to be ecologically efficient, leading today to 40% of the power needs of the manufacturing plants being fulfilled via green energy. The company is also socially aware and fulfills its responsibilities towards society. And shouldering these responsibilities with great elan is Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Poddar.
We believe great companies have a sense of purpose that is greater than profits.
As part of its mutual growth philosophy, BKT is an avid supporter of sport across the world.
The essence of BKT lies in embracing challenge.
BKT has set up global offices to ensure a strong market presence and the best customer service.
We believe it is not only vehicles that run on our tires, but the entire company that do.
Not just the external consumer, but every stakeholder has equally helped BKT scale to these heights, as per Mr. Rajiv Poddar.
We believe in forming long-term relationships with all our stakeholders.
It is this core team that is committed to helping BKT's customers across the world in fulfilling their ambitions. A team which is always preparing for the future. And because of these very people who are the strength of BKT, today it is poised towards becoming the world leader in the off-highway tire industry. BKT, growing together.
The DDRC group of laboratories was born in 1983 as Kerala's first professional diagnostic network at Cochin, Kerala. Born out of the vision of late Sri Joy Joseph, a visionary found a great void in this sector and thus began the legacy of modern-day DDRC SRL. A few among many over the last 38 years has transformed DDRC SRL to its current state of quality-oriented, ever-progressing and dominant market leader in the industry. Today, the group is popularly known as DDRC SRL Diagnostic Services. Under the eminent current leadership of Dr. Ajit Joy K, a dedicated group of senior management team supported by more than 52 specialist doctors and a workforce of more than 2,200 plus and 230 plus directly owned diagnostic centers across the state of Kerala. From Kasaragod to Kanyakumari, southern Tamil Nadu, and crossing over to Coorg district of Karnataka, this network covers 3 states in India and covers the rest of India with 3,000 plus units through its franchisees, the network of laboratories, making DDRC SRL the largest diagnostic chain in India. DDRC SRL, with its corporate office at Panampalli Nagar, Cochin, Kerala, has 2 centers of excellence at Trivandrum and Cochin, 3 NABL accredited centers at Cochin, Trivandrum and Kottayam, 2 CAP accredited centers at Delhi and Mumbai. The group is the leader in the diagnostic hospitals,
A very warm welcome to this session on Reminiscing C.K. Prahalad, the inspiration for India at 75. I'd like to, first and foremost, welcome the Prahalad family, Gayatri, Deepa, Murli, who have joined us here from San Diego in the US. I also like to welcome Mr. Ramodarai. Ram is the person who transformed TCS from a sub-billion-dollar company to today the second largest company by market cap. And it's such a pleasure to have you here with us, Ram. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Tarun Das, the former Director General and Chief Mentor, who also built an organization that the world looks to when it comes to Indian industry, both as the Director General and Chief Mentor of CII. And of course, we also have with us Chandrajit Banerjee, the Director General of CII, who is an organization that has championed the vision of India at 75 for the last 14 years, and that's where we are today. So a very, very warm welcome to all of you. I would really like to start this session by first inviting, his wife, Gayatri Prahalad. I would likely say the wind beneath his wings to open this session. Over to you, Gayatri.
Thanks, Rajan, for that kind introduction. Members of the India at 75 Council, it is my privilege to address the Council today. It is wonderful to reconnect, at least virtually, with good friends like Mr. Ramadurai, Mr. Das, Mr. Banerjee, and of course you, Rajan. Before I begin any remarks for the occasion, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the tremendous pain that India has suffered during the past 2 years and extend my sincere condolences to all of you who have lost members and loved ones. I would also like to express my gratitude to those who have gone above and beyond to extend their help during these challenging circumstances. We have a year before us until the 75th year and reflect and decide on a course of action. I look back in my mind's eye at my husband sitting in his study, preparing for his talk on India's 60th anniversary and asking him what he was going to say. He said he was going to be brief about the past 60 years as they were already in the rear view mirror. He felt strongly that we had to plan for the next 15 years about where we wanted to be, knowing that we could not afford to lose the window of opportunity. Today, we are here looking back on the past 14 years to take a look at our journey. We have made progress, but we have also been given a sobering look at where we have fallen short. Today, the biggest challenge we see, the biggest change we see is in our infrastructure. Our airports are on par with anywhere in the world. Our highways are getting to be great. Our cities, we do not see the abject poverty that we used to see. When my husband wanted to see how well the country was doing, he did not just read the economic reports that were put out by the government. He used a different yardstick. His conversation started with the taxi driver, extended to the vegetable vendor, the clothing store, the bookshop, the newspaper vendor, and the sweeper. I know many of us have had a chance to reconsider who is essential and which skills deserve respect during this crisis. With so many of our hard-earned gains at risk, I hope that we will remember his inclusive approach and his gift of dreaming big. I often asked my husband what he learned from these conversations. He said he wanted to understand how the dream of the common man on the street was changing. Was he able to grasp his aspirations? He deeply empathized with those struggling on meager incomes to give their children a better life. He saw the rising aspirations in every segment of society and felt it was our duty to rekindle in every citizen our faith in the government. Now is the perfect time to ask ourselves how many of the promises we made have been kept. There is work to be done on every front. COVID has dealt a formidable blow to all of us and taken away our hard-won gains. But we cannot make it a reason or an excuse to lose our focus. We have to show the world our resilience. We have 1 year more left to regain and try to focus on what we need to capture. Our journey is not over, it has just begun. I want to thank all the members of the India at 75 committee for their efforts over the last 15 years to make this vision a reality and to keep the dream alive. Thank you all and God bless.
Thank you, Gayatri, for those words which really came from your heart and really bring back memories of CK to all of us in a manner that only you can talk about. To you, Ram, to really share with us, not only your journey, on India at 75, but particularly, when it has come to skills, your association right from day one, over the last decade and a half, seeing this particular initiative move and grow, and look forward to hearing your thoughts at this session. Over to you, Ram.
Thank you, Rajan. Nice to see Gayatri, Deepa, Murli, Tarun, Chandrajit. I'm thankful to all of you for requesting me to speak on this important initiative, India at 75, as well as Reminiscing, CK, as he was called. I think I remember the issues he wrote about always started with bottom of the pyramid and how the future in terms of the climate change, humanity, and the planet itself was at risk and how it was going to play out. It was in August 15, 2007, when CKP, as he delivered a speech, India at 60, when he mentioned that leadership is about the future, about change, and about hope. He believed that while it was good to remember the accomplishments of the past 60 years, it was all the more important to create a roadmap for the next 15 years. He spoke about India at 75 and how we could attain the goals that would let India reach absolutely new heights. And when we look at today, CKP believed that India could and should actively shape the emerging world order. While the achievements of the past 75 years are humbling, and one feels a sense of pride about how far India has come in the global arena, one must also be cognizant of the vast amount of untapped potential that India still has, which, if leveraged, could bring the new dimensions and speed to India's growth and development. We must realize that India cannot attain its aspirational global position in the coming decade by extrapolating what was done for the last 75 years. We must acquire greater economic power, technological vitality, and moral leadership as India has the potential and resilience to emerge as a significant global leader. There is a need to recognize new patterns of opportunity and have the courage to pursue them. In today's context, Industry 4.0 technologies hold tremendous opportunities for the future of India, particularly due to our demographic advantage. We have 62% or 62.5% of our population in the age group of 15 to 59 years, which is ever increasing and will peak at around 2036. As mentioned by our Honorable PM recently, the combination of nation's demographic dividend and data with proven tech prowess presents immense opportunities for India. The right attitude, infrastructure, and policies, the next decade could be India's decade. CKP was a true leader, a rare individual with a rare mind. In his India at 75 framework, he wanted a shift from abject poverty to income inequality, universality of aspiration, and change in the value equation where products or services do not discriminate among consumers. And during the last decade, much of this has been achieved. If CKP were alive today, he would have been very proud to see Indian business houses emerge as respected global players and India's figure in the global influential group of nations. Going by his vision in the coming decade, the areas that India need to focus should be economic mobility, economic inclusivity, low income inequality, universal accessibility to opportunities and resources, and of course, ecological vitality. CKP always emphasized on the power of skill development and how by strengthening the human capital, we can compete at a global scale. He felt that given the challenges of India in terms of reach and scale, technology could be a big driver in addressing the lack of good quality content and lack of good faculty being accessible to people who needed it the most. It was his conviction that made me take the leadership role in the nationwide skilling challenge and to join the government pro bono. Skill development in the country gained a significant momentum in 2009 when the National Skill Development Agency and the National Skill Development Corporation got established subsequently. I think this was the year 2011 when I started working as an advisor to the former Prime Minister and on skill development. While I had personally experienced tremendous capabilities of young software professionals of TCS, the sheer scale and scope of the National Skill Development Challenge was itself extremely formidable. It was heartening to note that most elected representatives, civil servants, and industrialists would readily agree on the importance of this skill needs for the nation's progress. But the challenge of harmonizing the diverse efforts of multifarious ministries, departments, state governments, central institutions, the NGOs, industry-sponsored institutes in skill development space was a massive exercise in itself. It is in this process of meeting with ministers, ministries, vocational training providers, NGOs, funding agencies, ITIs, etc., that I realized all these challenges in skill development could in fact be looked at as essentially opportunities. I think we did quite a bit of experimentation at TCS itself in terms of looking at building and how do you bring in the automation, including the learning skills and building very, very good simulators for this whole exercise. I think as we enabled multiple teams to build and deploy world-class innovations for skill development, it became clear that the National Skill Development Corporation had to do a lot more, and the role of the private sector was absolutely critical if it had to take off. I think we included a lot of corporate leaders into the National Skill Development Corporation through the CII, through FICCI, through NASCOM, etc. But it was one of the most productive areas to lay the policy guidelines as well as some of the standards and the governance models to be put in place, whether it was at the state government or at the center. The private sector partners in a few years created a footprint which is larger than the decades-old government skill development initiatives. We also realized that it was important not only to standardize, but also to benchmark with the best in the world. I think there are several international agencies, partners that were brought in, and the quality and the commonality of outcomes was absolutely crucial to create a skill development ecosystem where the mobility of the skills could be transferred from one country to another without another set of qualifications or recognition. Digitization also brought in a better form of governance. I think the NSDC created new partners, new assessment partners, and today I'm happy to say that there are more than 35 plus sector skill councils. The National Occupation Standards Qualification packs are all well established, and it reflects the Indian realities and the aspirations. I think today NSDC, I'm happy to say, works with more than 11,000 training centers across 28 Indian states and 7 union territories. Skilling efforts resulted in impacting more than 15 million plus youth and placing 5.5 million youth in the vocational jobs as the data given to us of September 2020. I think we have international agreements with Japan, Australia, Germany, who have opened the doors to global expertise flowing in to improve our training methods and standards. I think the National Skill Development Agency set up the standards, which we call as the National Skill Qualification Framework, and more importantly, the recognition of the prior learning, which was completely absent in our system. A labor market information system was also launched, and the apprenticeship program was completely redone so that the apprentices and the acceptance by the corporates was a way of life. I think in 2014, the Government of India formed a new ministry where the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship was formed, and this became a priority to give further impetus to our efforts. I think the national policy was launched on skill development in 2015, and these were some of the steps that were taken. I think the latest one is the establishment of the Indian Institute of Skills, very similar to the IITs and the IIMs, and this would be the premier institutes to provide advanced skills in highly specialized areas of defense, aerospace, oil and gas. According to the OECD's economic outlook for 2021, we think Indian economy contracted by 7.7% in 2020. But however, despite the slowdown, they have projected a growth of about 9.9% in the year 2021, probably the fastest among G20. If I'm not mistaken, the Reserve Bank also said about 9.5% about a couple of days ago. and hopefully that should generate a lot of employment for our youth. As India's economy is shifting away on all levels of formal education, but climate education must be taken beyond the school level into the undergraduate courses across disciplines with links to technological courses. This will equip the students with skills and learnings needed to build a green jobs ready workforce who will go on to become green consumers and climate aware and engaged citizens. Climate literacy and green skills holds the key to addressing climate crisis. This is the only way through which we can prepare the youth of today for a future of sustainable growth and green economy where policymakers are held accountable for climate adverse steps and policies. On the other hand, the pandemic has aggravated the inadequacies in India's healthcare sector, revealing a somber image of nation's primary healthcare, with only 3% of India's doctors living in rural areas where 70% of the population resides. There's not only a shortage of doctors, but also a severe dearth of community health workers. It is estimated that about 80% of disease conditions can be addressed at the primary care level. And to achieve that, there's an urgent need to ramp up the percentage of primary health workers across the country. A community health worker is the most important cog in the wheel of the primary health services. Frontline workers cannot only help control the disease spread, but can also be deployed effectively in promoting awareness in communities about disease prevention measures. In this regard, there's a constant need for reskilling and upskilling that meets demands of the changing healthcare scenario. I think the Ayushman Bharat program aims at improving primary health delivery significantly, but the creation of health and wellness centers with availability of appropriate diagnostic and drugs using technology applications for screening and management of non-communicable diseases is an absolute must if this has to succeed. The Government of India's NCD program has also been facilitated by the Tata Trust. I think the last but not the least, which I must ensure it is addressed, is the India's women's labor workforce participation rate, which is still abysmally low and it has only plummeted in the last decade. I think we need to address this most important issue, and the way hope for incorporation of more protective provisions to create congenial work environments across the country, women workers, childcare subsidies, and other incentives will have a spillover effect if we address it properly. The technology landscape, changing the landscape of our country, with remote working becoming a part of life, and it saw amplified during the COVID-19 times, the emergence of gig worker platforms, there is considerable potential to improve this aspect, namely the women's participation in the workforce. STEM subjects will play a critical role in this. There is a need to inspire more women to pursue the STEM education and STEM careers through various government-led initiatives and awareness. I think we have, in conclusion, I would like to say we have created a very large momentum in the last decade, but if we have to move, we have to move more aggressively with concerted effort, constantly improving, innovating, and adapting, but absolutely not losing the focus. The goal for India now, which is aligned to CKP's vision, to build the largest pool of technologically proficient human capital anywhere in the world. Emerging technologies, whether it is Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, or machine language, nanotechnology, electric vehicle technologies, gene editing, blockchain, 3D printing, and augmented reality, and synthetic biology are bringing along tremendous opportunities, and large-scale deployment of some of these possible. In conclusion, as we reminisce CKP, some of the ideas he gave, some of the ways we have adopted it, some of the ways we are pushing it, it's the coming together where we will propel beyond the India at 75. And I wish everyone the best. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be speaking at this forum.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ram, for really highlighting, so many aspects of CK. But I think the one thing that you've highlighted and that has stood out is really how skills has been the mainstay of, what CK always talked and believed in. Now I'd like to welcome Murli Prahalad, somebody who's been in technology and life sciences for the past 14 years, president and CEO of Iridia Inc. in San Diego, USA, and son of CK Prahalad. Over to you, Murli.
Thanks so much, Rajan, and I want to also thank you, CII Chandrajit, Tarun Uncle, Mr. Ramadurai, for remembering my father's vision and helping ensure that the country doesn't forget it either. It's great to be with all of you here today. I also want to echo my mother's sentiments and offer my deepest condolences to so many across India who have lost loved ones this year due to COVID. We too lost the two eldest members of our family, my grandmother and my aunt. And so while we live here, we're absolutely united in this common grief. In preparing for this session, I went back and reread my father's speech, as I do every year. And I keep coming back to the idea that rarely is one presented with a vision of such scale, inclusiveness, and clarity, a vision that is distilled to a core set of focused and actionable imperatives. But I think overall in time, the foresight and prescience of that vision will only be appreciated more and more. And so while there's a profound depth and urgency to so many of the points in that speech, is data versus dogma. My father had a deep loathing of the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany. He often told me once, Nazi Germany was at least defeated decisively in World War II. The Soviets, he complained, went on to influence so much of the world and spread a system that blindly rejected data over ideology and trampled both lives and livelihoods in the millions in the process. My father had an interesting warning for us in his India at 75 speech. And I quote, he said, there is a lot of data that is available on every issue we've identified as critical so far. However, the debate is often ideological. Data gets distorted, or worse, not even used. History is full of examples of the human consequences of placing ideology over data-driven reality. Those include the millions who died in the gulags of Stalin or the famines of Mao. Democracy does not necessarily buffer a nation from the unintended negative consequences of poorly informed choices. These words haunt me this year. And so where do we go from here? My father was always an optimist who looked at the future. Here too, I would invoke one of his greatest inspirations, Swami Vivekananda, who said, we must have faith in the blood that runs through our veins, and that faith and that consciousness of past greatness, we must build an India yet greater than what she has been. There have been periods of decay and degradation. A mighty tree produces beautiful ripe fruit. That fruit falls on the ground, it decays and rots, and out of that decay springs a root in the future tree, perhaps mightier than the first one. My father was an ardent believer in India's resilience. Today, India and her diaspora may be more united in pain than in purpose. COVID spared no one, young or old, no caste, no creed, religion, rich or poor. In the most tragic of ways, it has united us and reminded us of our commonality as Indians and our commonality as people. I could only imagine my father asking, how could we transform that shared pain into renewed shared purpose? Can we approach the rebuilding of the economy and the healthcare system as a springboard for more transformational and urgent reforms, more experiments, bringing together India and its diaspora to pioneer new products and services and new modes of administration and governance that are so desperately required? Now more than ever, my father's message and roadmap calls to us. I pray that under these most unique of times, this tragedy is a catalyst to hear that call. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Murli, for talking on a subject that has been so close to both you and to CK, and really discussing how we can see the future unfold in some of these areas as we move forward. So thanks for that. I'd now like to invite Deepa Prahalad, who is an author, speaker, innovation design strategist with an emphasis on emerging markets and social innovation, and daughter of CK Prahalad. Deepa, over to you.
It's a privilege to see you, and at least virtually, and have this opportunity to speak with the council. My mother and I have traveled back many times, and we are looking forward to seeing you in person again. And I think in a time like this, it's impossible for any of us to pretend that any of us saw this coming. This has been a time of unprecedented challenge. And I think because of that, it's time to return a little bit to first principles. I think Mr. Ramadurai brilliantly summed up the emphasis of the original vision. This expansive idea of India being a source of global innovation, fostering arts and culture, and using these three key pillars of technological vitality, economic strength, and moral leadership really reflect, I believe, my father's ability to look deep into the past and far into the future. I think what makes him stand out is his always this keen and deliberate balance between understanding that focus is what builds strong companies, but it's a respect for diversity that builds strong societies. And he never forgot that. Many people asked him, well, why don't you start your own foundation? Why don't you address your things this way? But many of us have grown up hearing that when we're choosing our partners in life, we have to look not just at the individual, but at the family. And he truly believed that what happened in India was something that was happening in the family, and that no individual achievement would ever compensate for not having an India that was strong, that made us all proud. And that was the spirit in which he created this vision. So why were the goals so ambitious? This has been an issue widely debated from the beginning. So those goals that he outlined are incredibly ambitious, but they were never pulled out of thin air. They were set forth with understanding what was outside of existing corporates by design. They can't be achieved with even flawless execution of everyone's business strategies or expansion of existing policy. All of the milestones on skills, urbanization, and everything else were made with the intention of forcing India to innovate and to be inclusive. In order to achieve these numbers, every corner of India has to be touched. There would have to be many more large corporations and startups created. There would be many more game-changing devices designed and produced in India. Old and new brands would appear on shelves in households around the world. And it's time to revisit why he also, although he worked so closely with companies, believed there had to be a national strategy. So much has changed in India since the vision was initially introduced. Many Indian corporations have grown in stature and gained international recognition. Many also have a very long and proud tradition of supporting worthwhile causes. Many now are even supporting entrepreneurs. New tools are at our disposal to drive social change. There are many achievements that rightly make India proud. However, lots of virtuous individual actions cannot compensate for a coordinated national strategy. Indian companies, cities, and states have all done good things. Still, countries with similar characteristics and even poorer ones regularly outpace India on basic development indicators, and the strains of inequality immediately dampen any hard-won progress. They also confuse the otherwise very exciting India story, both inside and outside. My father always understood the fact that a decent standard of living would be a moving target and an inclusive approach was non-negotiable. He believed that the vision for society is captured in the writings of the nation's founders, the constitutional ideals that we all learn in school, but the delivery of those ideals is increasingly the work of entrepreneurs. Their successes, stories, and mindsets shape the way we create, connect, and behave. These agenda items are limited and ambitious. They are not exhaustive by design. He was never saying these are the only things that India needed to do to become a global power. The focus was to provide a list of goals that would bring any aspiration India had within her reach. The debates about skills and inequality today are now global. The vulnerabilities of all systems are now visible, creating opportunities for solutions in India to travel farther and faster. Several countries have also articulated their own version of economic nationalism, meaning that the emphasis today is now on implementation. There will be greater scrutiny on how well India is developing its people, not just its narrative or its industry. More than anything else, though, India at 75 is a reflection of my father's deep faith in India, its people, and its ideals. At a time when India doubted its industry, he reached out because of his deep belief that business could be an agent of change. On many occasions, he talked about entrepreneurs as the freedom fighters of the modern age. He sought out also and showcased excellence far outside the corporate realm, drawing attention to many world-beating innovations not fully appreciated in India or outside. In an interview in Strategy and Business, he said something that has stuck with me. said, if I had to characterize my deepest belief, it's in the centrality of the individual. And I think he captured that beautifully in one of his statements in India, where he said the bottom-up revolution in India must start with individuals, their capabilities, their empowerment, their dignity, and their ability to live their lives and realize their dreams. I realize the magnitude of the challenges that this refocus of our efforts demands. But we have started this journey. The universal ID, focus on literacy and skill development, local management with national standards are all building blocks of a society that focuses on improving individuals and as a result contributes to the collective progress. We must re-examine everything anew in light of this crisis, but I hope that one thing that we'll never forget is his deep faith, his optimism, and his belief in India. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you, Deepa, for besides just highlighting so many other aspects of CK, really highlighting the fact that there were non-negotiables for the transformation of India. Be it inclusivity, price performance, something that he strongly drove towards, scale, and the ability for India to innovate within those limitations and really take that movement forward. Thanks for sharing so many of your other thoughts today. I'm now going to move to Mr. Tarun Das, the chairman of the Institute of Economic Growth, but more importantly, someone who has been so connected to this idea and philosophy of India at 75. Tarun, I'm going to request you for something a little different. We are celebrating, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. We are the 75th, year of the Indian independence. How has really India transformed over these 75 years? The last 30 years post-liberalization, the last 15 years, particularly when CII has championed this whole agenda of India at 75 and the future from here on. So love to get your thoughts as a visioning exercise moving forward, if you could take that.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be with the Prahalad family, with Mr. Ramadurai, my old friend, with Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General CII, and with you, Rajan, who has carried the mantle of India at 75 for the past 13 years. And I remember it was early May in Delhi in 2008. KV Kamath had just become president and Chandrajit had just become Director General. And we were having a meeting and CK was present at that. And this meeting was being held to publicly announce the India at 75 program, objectives, vision. And it was a landmark day because a lot of planning had gone in between his speech in 2007, September in New York, when he talked of India at 75, and this early May meeting, and a CII, you, Rajan, and many others sat together. You involved the Boston Consulting Group, remember. So a moment of history, a moment to remember, where it all began. And to recognize that, he spent a quarter of a century of his life with us. 25 years of partnership, 25 years of mentorship, 25 years of friendship. What an amazing man. And he gave himself to us. There are givers and takers in the world, but this man, CK Prahalad, gave himself, his intellect, his vision, his, boosting our morale and confidence. He gave it all to us and enunciated it in some ways which are in your India at 75 objectives, like competitiveness of manufacturing industry. And some of my earlier speakers have talked, especially Ram, about skills development. We should not forget the 10% growth vision he gave us. We never thought that we could achieve 6 or 7, and he was talking 10, and he said, go for it, and this is how you go for it. And he didn't just give us objectives, he worked with us side by side to make it happen. That was the greatness of the man. I'm going to take a leaf out of his book, and I'm going to respond to you, Rajan. Even though some of the points have been covered, I'm going to give you 7 points. CK set out a 15-year block of time for us, ending in 2022. I am going to suggest to CII Director General and to you, Rajan, the Chairman of the committee, to think about the next 15 years block of time as a tribute to this great man who gave us the vision of India at 75. So I'm talking about India at 90. And what do I want to see? And adding to what has been said by Ram, by Gayatri, by Murli, by Deepa, I want to see something that CK wanted very badly and which we have yet to achieve. So it's on the pending agenda. Deregulation, decontrol, free industry, free the private sector, move from a mistrust-based system to a trust-based system. Because then the private sector will flower, not only in India, but in the world. Second, he was always curious and he could not understand very often how the government of India worked, or the state governments. And he talked about that. So one big issue ahead of us is the reform of the administration. And the reform of the administration has to start with the political leadership, like many other things that some of my colleagues have spoken about. And I want to suggest that you go to the Prime Minister and say that you need to chair, please, with all the chief ministers on board, a council on reform of the administration, reform of the bureaucracy, reform of the red tape, the procedures, because that goes hand in hand with a trust-based system. And it cannot be achieved unless the political leadership of this country is committed. And I think the Prime Minister might buy it, because he's been trying very hard for ease of doing business. And a lot of achievement is there, but a lot is pending, as we know. I mean, he's done an amazing thing. He's removed the retrospective taxation law in one sweep. So he is capable of dramatic reform. We need to appeal to him that reform of the administration is a huge agenda going forward. And that is part of freeing people to get on with what they want to do. My third point, India, CK always felt, and I believe, we don't need to be afraid of the world. We are globally talented. We are globally competitive. TCS led the way, Infosys followed, Wipro followed, but that has extended to many, many companies of India. So let's go for an open economy. Let's free our borders. Let's integrate with the world, because we don't have anything to worry about. We are talented. And we have the confidence that CK gave us. So this is my point number 3. The fourth point, arising from what Ram said about skills, India can be the human resources hub of the world. Because we have the finest talent in this country. And if you look around the world, there are Indians heading organizations, companies everywhere. And managers, senior managers, executives, scientists, professors, doctors, you look at it, I mean, the National Health Service of Great Britain would not run without Indians. It's like that. So we please work in the next 15 years to achieve this and make India the HR hub of the world. My next point is a very simple point, but a very basic point, and it relates to CK's concern for the poor, for the vulnerable, which you all have talked about. Safe drinking water from the tap. Just a simple thing across the nation. Everybody will get safe drinking water from the tap. It started. This government has actually started that process in 1 or 2 places. But what I'm suggesting is that by India at 90, every village will have safe drinking water for the villagers, for their children. And Murli, to your point, can you imagine what an impact it will have on disease of all kinds, right? So this is a very small point, but a very critical point for the health of our country, for the quality of life of the country, because you have no idea what kind of water people are drinking. My next point flows from Ram's point about skills. We are not going to solve our employment problems by companies providing employment or the government providing employment, because government is a huge employment agency. And so many people say, oh, I'll go for a government job. That's not the answer. The answer is entrepreneurship. And the answer is micro, medium, small entrepreneurs. People who will employ 5 people, 10 people. We will revolutionize this country, and we will create jobs across the country at every level. If you push entrepreneurship across the country, take entrepreneurship to the local level, to the district level, to the village level, and encourage people to be self-employed, because they're only through self-employment and they're employing a few other people will we be able to achieve anywhere near full employment. We've got to get out of this joblessness. We've got to get out of millions and millions of migrants, millions and millions of people right now because of COVID, Murli, out of a job, out of work, committing suicide, taking their lives, husband killing his wife and children killing himself. This cannot happen in India. This is not the India of CK's dreams. So we have to make sure that India at 90 is going to be an intensive self-employment, entrepreneurship pushing agenda. My next point goes back to a little bit to safe drinking water, but 700 million people live in the villages of India. No healthcare, very little education facilities, no broadband facilities, Very often no roads. We have great highways, but no roads for vehicles to get to the village. So the rural economy has to be transformed. This has to be a major objective of India at 90. And this will also help to decongest the cities of India, which are overcrowded, overcongested, unhealthy, and is leading to crime because men are leaving their families to come to the city for jobs. No jobs, so crime, rape, violence, all of that comes out of the frustration that these people feel and the frustration that CK talked about to Deepa, which she referred to. You've got to develop the rural economy. And my last point is gender equality and gender safety. Women must be safe in India. Women must always be safe in India, everywhere in India. Women will not be molested. Women will not be insulted. Women will be respected. They are the backbone of our society. They are the backbone of our families. We have to work in your agenda for India at 90 to make sure that women are safe and women are equal. Because that is something, is a huge pending agenda. Now I've finished some of my ideas on the agenda. I can go on. I must stop because of time. But I have one last point. Who's going to do all this? In my mind, for 15 years, no, for 14 years, Rajan, you with CB as your partner and his team have worked on this agenda that CK laid out for us. Because CII is a unique organization. It goes beyond lobbying for taxes. It always has. It's a development institution. It thinks of the nation. It thinks of the country. So you have to do it. You have to, CII has to take the responsibility. But within CII, I would suggest to Chandrajit and to you, Rajan, former chairman, you have a magnificent organization with magnificent potential, with which CK spent a lot of time, is the young Indians. They are the future. We are not the future. They are the future. So energizing the young Indians, as CK did, he spent time with them. He motivated them. He inspired them. You remember those days when he spent time with them. People would have tears in their eyes after listening to CK. And it was a life-changing experience for them. So please involve and build this young Indians cadre into an army of people, army of young people who will work for India at 90. Thank you very much.
A wonderful point that you have raised. And I'm going to, give the last word of this session to somebody who has been a very patient listener. But I cannot not invite Chandrajit Banerjee, the Director General of CII. Thank you, CB. You have been, a pillar strength, as Tarun mentioned, really held this agenda as an institution, even through your personal leadership, very, very strongly over the past 13 and 14 years. And I'm going to really request you to have the last word on this session before we close. Over to you, CB.
Hey, thanks, Rajan. I just wanted to thank everybody. I wanted to really thank Mrs. Prahalad, Gayatri, Murli. I mean, it's been a phenomenal. I mean, it's so good that you have stayed with us, stayed engaged last 15 years on this huge agenda of Professor Prahalad, and it's really gives a phenomenal encouragement. So thank you very much. Really want to thank you, and really particularly thank you because you always take time off during this time of the year and be with us especially. And so glad that you are also pretty much encouraging us and thinking that, I mean, it's like almost like getting us checked whether we are on the right path in this journey. And thank you very much for that involvement, for that being with us always. Two people who have been there on this journey again from day zero are both Mr. Ramadurai and Mr. Das. Fantastic to hear them today, and great that Mr. Ramadurai talked about skills and how one of the biggest agenda points of India at 75 got really translated into action. And he has been one of the founder leaders, if one can say, in that space for India. So it's great to have him and his involvement, and he's always been involved. And Mr. Das, of course, what to say, that he has been one who has not just only mentored the two institutions, but also really given this task again, looking at always making us the one think ahead. So as we have heard today about thinking 15 years later as to what we should. And Rajan, thanks to you too, because you have been also one big continuity and the link between India at 75 as a trust and a foundation and CII. And you are in the trust, and you are also chairing the CII's India at 75 Council. So it's fantastic to have these type of individuals who are so strongly engaged with this mission. I just wanted to go back also to my discussions, my talks, my one-to-one talks sometimes with Professor C.K. Prahalad, and when he talked about and we alluded to it, Purna Swaraj, and he said that we'll reach there, but sometimes it is not clear as to how we will reach there, and the paths will come as we go along. So don't lose your heart. Just everything is not chalked up. Every step is not clear, but as you go on, your steps would come out, and you will be able to do it. And he was the one who actually, I remember one evening, two of us were having dinner, and he explained as to how it would not be possible unless, what Mr. Das just also mentioned a few minutes back, that unless CII internalizes it. So you internalize the agenda of India at 75 very strongly. So it was always great wisdom from him, and one could bring in that positivity, and when we started, as Mr. Das was mentioning, 2007, 2008, that was 8th of May when we launched India at 75, and it was, so 2008 I underlined, because that was also when the world landed into a lot of crisis in terms of the economy, in terms of the financial crisis and all of that. And I remember some people in all communities said that, hey, we are in trouble now. Why look at 75? Let's look now. And I used to go back to Professor Prahalad saying that there is pain now. Nobody wants to look 15 years hence. So, and it was always good to understand that you'll have to, this is going to be tough. You'll have to persuade these people to look at the future. And unless they look at the future 15 years later, nothing, and if you live by the day, nothing would happen. So it was a lot of work which agenda that CII got to work with the government of India, the state governments, the district levels, the zonal level administration. So I think we could really penetrate the thinking, the mindsets of the administration, the industry, and all the stakeholders so very strongly, which gave us the last 14 years now and another year. That gave us a lot rich agenda for India at 75 and CII to work on. And I think we in the process gained a lot of respect as institutions, and credibility from all the stakeholders all around our membership, our even civil society, from the government of the day, and even internationally. And lastly, I also just as I wind up, I say that in the last 14 years, if one would say, we didn't ever imagine a few things would happen. And few things have happened. Who thought that India would, and if you really look at the India at 75's initial objectives and thoughts as India to be a global leader, who thought at that point in time? I mean, just take a simple example that India would actually talk to the world to say there has got to be something called the International Solar Alliance, and India would be a founding member of the International Solar Alliance, talking about the space of the renewable energy mission, so to say, making India a sort of a global leader. And today, if you really look at 95%, today India is the second largest in terms of the green homes that we have in the world after the United States. So that's a huge achievement that one has, and so glad to say that 95% of those green homes, CII India 75 is being deeply involved. 95%, that's a big market share, if I can use that term. So there has been some very, very breakthrough sort of work which has been done in India to put India into the global leadership map. Skilling is, of course, we've talked about it. We have heard about skilling. We know that skilling is something which the country is really driving strongly. And it has also given CII an agenda to work on skilling. Mr. Das spoke about water. This entire mission of Har Ghar Jal, which has been launched, is again a phenomenal project with which our Water Institute has got involved. Again, a vision of CK. Toilets, for simple thing, common man, toilets in every home, water at every tap, cooking gas for everybody, LED revolution. So we have seen some very simple yet very powerful thing, and one of the big agenda, if you recollect, that was there in the India at 75, at that point in time, was infrastructure, and we are seeing India going steadily forward on that. I wanted to say that why I mentioned the last few, so if I can say, achievements, is because it gives me a lot of encouragement, and it gives a strong sense of optimism that yes, I do not know what we envisaged as India at 75 then for 2022, whether we are all there, but I'm certain that we have done well in 15 years, and we have really come a long way. And so this was the right mission for us to have internalized. This was the right way to go forward, and this is the right way to go forward, hence, for the next 15 years, as was mentioned by Mr. Das, for the India at 90. And I think and we should be able to get there in the way we are dreaming. So thank you very much, Rajan, for coordinating this and having this on a very important day for CII and for India at 75.
Thank you, Chandrajit. And the India at 90 is really something that we've been thinking about, but we're going to strengthen it. And I thank you, Tarun and CB, and everyone for helping shape the future agenda of what has been a fantastic journey. So thank you, Gayatri, Deepa, Murli. Thank you, Ram, so much for being here. Thank you, Tarun. Thank you, CB, for a lovely session.
Thank you, Rajan.
Thank you so much. It's great seeing everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.